Lamps full understandings. Subscribe, then like. You can help another attain until salvation. Spread the good news. Subscribe and like now. Bless your family and friends. Share now.
And Jesus answering said, Were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? There are not found that return to give glory to God, save this stranger. And he said unto him, Arise, go thy way, thy faith hath made thee whole.
This provides a review of the celestial signs that appear when Jesus is entombed, sunset, as the day is about to go into Nisan 15 in the year 27 AD. It's a Wednesday sunset in the evening. We'll review that sign for the purpose of then showing the other possible years that we can locate at the same time and see that those years do not qualify and don't have the necessary signs to be the correct year that Jesus died on the cross. And this will be sort of a positive and negative. So you see everything that is correct and then all the years and why they're incorrect. And then we will review some biblical passages that lead to the same year so that the Bible itself and the celestial signs are in agreement with what year it was that Jesus died on the cross.
And so there's many other ways to understand that Jesus died in 27 AD. And looking at the celestial signs is, again, another method. But this is the most reliable method because we're matching up the verses, which are celestial verses, with the actual celestial sign that we can find and see in the astronomy application, and we get the date stamp. And of course the date stamp confirms what we're also seeing just in the Bible itself. And so this is a witness, and you will find that once you are on the timeline of Jesus that all the signs matching the verses show up. So in this particular case, Wednesday, April 9, 27 AD at 1901, this is sunset. And I saw and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer. Revelation 6 verse 2. So Jesus rides a white horse. And of course, Jesus conquered on the cross. And he's going to return to conquer. And his message and gospel message of the 2 fish goes out into the world, and it conquers sin in individuals, and it conquers their unbelief unto belief. At this particular time, we have Jupiter inside of Sagittarius. Now, at the head of Sagittarius is the center of our Milky Way galaxy. So it's a very dense area of stars. And so that becomes the crown on his head. And Sagittarius is called the archer, and he is depicted with a bow and arrow. And he's a centaur, a man that rides a horse. And so it fits this description of the verse. So it's telling you, find that constellation, but at the time in which Jupiter is present. Jupiter is only going to be present about once every 12 or 13 years. So the return of when Jesus died on the cross, it can only be within about a 7-year range of years, as Daniel 9 tells us. Well, Jupiter is only going to be here once every 12 years. So if you find Jupiter in Sagittarius within one of the 7 years, that would be the correct year of his death and resurrection. And so if you go between 24 AD and say 34 AD, a 10-year period, you're only going to find Jupiter in Sagittarius in those 10 years only on this year, 27 AD. Therefore, this, according to the signs, is the correct year. Now, there's more signs given at this particular moment to additionally confirm that this is the correct year. So Jupiter looks like a multicolored, very large planet. So it represents, just as Joseph had a multicolored coat, and Joseph is a great type of Christ, Jupiter represents Jesus. And so Jupiter is always the planet that marks the time. At this same time, April 9, 27, at sunset, we have the full moon at her feet. They needed the full moon at their feet when they're walking out during the Exodus, which is precisely on this date. It's the full moon that leads into Nisan 15, of which they're now on the border between Egypt and the wilderness, ready to walk out into the wilderness. And it's sunset, so they're losing light. But the full moon is going to come up and provide them with light. If you go even just hours before or after sunset, this moon is going to move significantly. So there's a huge degree of accuracy here. This is very accurate that the moon is positioned just under her feet, because that's what it says in Revelation 12, verse 1, when it's trying to create a messianic sign. This is very precise. It would only take a few hours for the moon to completely shift from this position. So at this time, we find Mars and Saturn in Taurus, the bull. Now, Saturn is a very feminine-looking planet with the pretty rings. So we read this, Mars is red, Saturn is feminine, right? And the red heifer, which is a special sacrifice, it was an analogy for Jesus dying on the cross. The red heifer was a very perfect animal, and just as Jesus was sinless. So here we find a sign that is indicative of the sacrifice called the red heifer. The ram, the son, S-U-N, of righteousness. The ram, in the story of Abraham and Isaac, the ram caught in a thicket. And so the sun is centered underneath the Aries, right at this moment, very, very centered. The son of righteousness. And then Mercury and Venus are positioned very uniformly on either side of the Pisces, two fish, which is the representation of the ministry of Jesus. Two fish was a very popular early icon of the ministry of Jesus, the gospel message. And so all of this is happening on Nisan 15 on Wednesday, 27 AD, right? So this is a Wednesday. It has to be a Wednesday. According to Daniel 9, it has to be in the middle of the week. And of course, Jesus said that he would resurrect 3 days and 3 nights after he is entombed. So it doesn't go by his death. It goes by when he goes into the tomb versus when he comes out of the tomb. That's exactly 3 days and 3 nights. Sagittarius 1, the moon 2, red heifer 3, the ram 4, and the fish 5. There's 5 celestial signs that all represent the timing of the Exodus, the fulfillment of a Revelation first seal, 2 images of the sacrifice of Jesus, red heifer and the ram. And those stories from the Old Testament are in the context of the death of the Messiah, the New Testament gospel message that goes out immediately following his sacrifice. So the whole message is here: Revelation, Exodus, Old Testament analogies of the sacrifice of Jesus and his future ministry. You could look at other years and see that maybe the same date of Nisan 15 was on a Wednesday. But in those years, you're not going to find Jupiter in Sagittarius. And you're not going to find all of these perfect signs that are in context to his death and resurrection. In 24 AD, the moon is in Libra, under her feet, but Jupiter is in Virgo. In 25 AD, the moon is not under her feet, and Jupiter is not in Sagittarius. In 26 AD, Jupiter is in Ophiuchus. The moon is not under her feet. In 28 AD, the moon is under her feet, but it's a Monday. Jupiter is in near Aquarius. Back to 24 AD, of course, it was a Wednesday, but the positions of the planets do not project any other signs related to the crucifixion. 25 AD was a Sunday. 26 AD was a Friday. 28 AD was a Monday. 29 AD is a Sunday. The moon is in Libra, and Jupiter is in Pisces. 30 AD is a Thursday. The moon is at her feet, not under her feet, and Jupiter is Pisces. In 31 AD, it's Tuesday. The moon is not under her feet, and Jupiter is in Aries. In 32 AD, the moon is in Libra. Jupiter is in Taurus, and it's a Monday. In 33 AD, it's a Friday. The moon is not under her feet. Jupiter is in Gemini, and it's a Friday, so this doesn't qualify. And finally, in 34 AD, the moon is not under her feet. Jupiter is in Cancer, and so this clearly does not qualify. I wanted to know the answer to the question that the apostles asked Jesus in Matthew 24, verse 3. What shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world, the end of the age? When shall these things be? And so we find that Matthew 24 is a very fascinating chapter. They're asking detailed questions. When are these things going to take place? And Jesus provides a detailed listing of events to come, like the destruction of the temple in AD 70, and he continues to provide advice as to what to expect before he returns, much like things we may find in the Revelation. The Revelation is called the Revelation because it is the revealing of the things that would quickly and shortly come to pass once we get there. Once you get to about 10 years before the return, the things of the Revelation start coming to pass. They're not detailed historic things for people to know in advance, but things which will occur way beyond their lifetimes. So it's really for the people who will be alive to witness and to live in this particular period of time which we're in. Those are the people who actually will benefit. In fact, if the players in Revelation don't exist yet, then it's hard enough to understand Revelation as it is. If the players don't even exist yet, then it's almost impossible to grasp what Revelation is all about. So there's an example of how it wouldn't do anyone any good thousands of years ago to have an understanding of Revelation. It might be something that affects their curiosity and compels them to study. And that is all good, because you're going to pick up and learn so many other things along the way. However, the effort as far as actually coming to an understanding of exactly what it means and represents would not really happen to anyone outside of the people who are living in that time, in the time period in which the things are being fulfilled. So we eventually come down to verse 36, which is very famous and quoted any time that anyone is suggesting a particular year or time that Jesus is going to return. This verse will get quoted, but of that day and hour, no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only, knows the day and the hour of the return. So this is used. There's no point in trying to say the day or the hour or the year, because this verse tells you only God knows. When this is quoted, they don't realize that it's already been made clear the Feast of Trumpets is the return feast. The prophetic understanding of the Feast of Trumpets is that that's the time in which Jesus returns. On the Feast of Trumpets, you have to look up in order to see when the first crescent of the moon is taking place, and if you feel you've witnessed it, testify to the priests that you have, and they'll question you, and then hopefully they'll determine you're correct, and they will blow the trumpet 1 of 2 days roughly that the new moon has been spotted, and so they can declare that to be the first day of Tishri. That trumpet blowing is a rehearsal of the sound of God coming through the atmosphere as his son and his angels are going through the east gate and coming to rescue the nation of Israel from the Gogian invasion. It's a war cry. And we see this war cry many places, one of which is at the end of Jericho. They need to shout as loud and as long and as hard as they can. And the walls come down. And so we recognize the walls coming down of Jericho with Revelation 11, the seventh trumpet. It says the kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our Lord. And so this verbiage in verse 36 is just the nickname for the Feast of Trumpets. It's the day in which no man knows the day or the hour, because you have to wait for the day to arrive and actually spot the new crescent of the moon in order to determine that it's the first day of the new calendar year. And because people don't know this as a Jewish idiom for the Feast of Trumpets, they're just reading it literally. You need to understand some Jewish tradition and idiom when it's utilized in the scriptures to more fully understand what's going on. So this verse was never intended to tell us that the scriptures does not contain the clues necessary to determine the day, hour, or the year in which Jesus returns. Of course, because we live in the last times, we are the benefactors of the prophecy in which knowledge would increase. And so we live in that time period. Scientific knowledge, all manner of knowledge, of course, biblical knowledge, it has increased. And with respect to understanding times, the astronomy applications have been developed so that the power of the formulas that dictate the movement of our planets is available to us in an application format, and so we can go forward and backward in time and see the planetary positions as they actually were in those prophetic moments, in the appointed times of the life of our Lord Jesus. And so we can, through the astronomy application, actually know the day and the hour, and not just the year. However, in this particular verse, the emphasis is on not knowing the day or the hour. Jesus knows the year. The year is given in the Gregorian format, in the format that we would understand when the time comes. So when it would be useful for those who are alive at his coming. And the way he does tell us the year is in this next verse. He tells us, "But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be." And the next verse will tell us, "For as in the days that were before the flood." However, Noah has a record of the days during the flood. The days before the flood are the times that represent the sinful nature of the people. And of course, it's comparing that sinful nature time with the sinful nature time that's going to exist when Jesus returns. However, here, it's not telling you about the sinful nature times. It's telling you they're eating and drinking. They're marrying and giving in marriage until Noah enters the ark, and they're just going about normal everyday business until the flood comes and takes them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man. And so it's really referring mostly to people who will be aware and believing of the return of Jesus, and even when, because there's so many prophecies that are detailed enough that we can understand and see that events in the world are at least generally fulfilling those prophecies. And some who don't believe and who just aren't even looking or watching or concerned about the return of Jesus. And so he's directing us not so much to the days before the flood. He's directing us in terms of, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be, the days during the flood, in which there's a whole great number of days given. And therefore, there's effectively like two real ways to read verse 37. And if you're not paying attention, you will always read it only one way. But if you're seeking and searching, you are looking for understanding, and you may, because of a more intensive, specific search for the answer to the question, when will the end of the age be? You will read this verse and have the hunch, hey, let me go look inside the days during the flood in Genesis chapter 7 and 8, and effectively take a leap of faith and just follow his words, just follow his instructions, as though they are a set of instructions where he's literally telling you where to go look. I'm not telling you in this chapter what year I'm going to return, but I will tell you where to go look in a different place in the Torah in order to find the answer to your question. And so we do. So at this time, we're not going to do a full detailed discourse on the days of Noah during the flood as the whole full-blown prophecy. We all recognize there's a time when a dove goes out and comes back, and then it goes out again on the 17th and comes back with an olive leaf, represents Israel. So the dove has found has found land and brings back something of that land that represents Israel. So the message is of the olive leaf in its beak is the dove went out and came back and with evidence that it found Israel. The dove goes out again and doesn't come back. So it becomes like a parable of the Jews in the early 20th century going out, not finding any land for them to settle on, because the First World War has happened, etc. They have very difficult lives in being kicked out of many and various countries that they were living in, and forced to leave, and all kinds of other tribulations. But eventually they find Israel, and they do come back because it's too harsh to live there just yet. But they go out and they actually go to Israel some more, and most of them stay until Israel becomes occupied by around 10 million people today. So this dove is a prophecy, an analogy of this major prophetic event occurring in the 20th century. And now Noah turns 601. The numbers in the Bible are very important, and in the story of the days of Noah, Noah goes from 600 to 601, which means the year 6000 to the year 6001. And the dominion of mankind was only to last 6,000 years. And then he will lose his dominion, and instead, Jesus will have all dominion for a millennia. And that is the seventh trumpet. And so now Noah is at the stage where he's removed the covering of the ark, and he sees that the ground is dry, which means it can be inhabited. The time comes, Noah and the animals can safely leave the ark, and the animals can find habitat to survive in, because at least the ground is dry, and enough time has gone by for vegetation to start growing back so that the animals have something to eat, and so they can be released into the wild again. There comes a time when Jesus also returns, and he has ascended into heaven, and he descends and returns. And in Noah's ark story, of course, the ark itself ascends to 15 cubits above the heavens and descends again and lands on Mount Ararat. So you have those two similarities. And then when Jesus returns, it's noted that his foot would retouch Mount Olivet. And here also, when Noah exits the ark, he's going to retouch the land as well. And he does that in the second month, 7 and 20th day of the month. Was the earth dried, and God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark. So we understand the words of Jesus. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be the coming of the Son of Man. And he's asking you to find the thing which occurs to Noah that is going to be the same as the thing which occurs to Jesus. And those two things that are both the same are the moment that both their feet retouch the earth after a long period of ascending and then descending back to the earth. And so all of the scriptures is properly understood by comparing the Old Testament shadows with the New Testament manifestations of those shadows. And so, not just here, but all the time, that is the most beneficial way to go about understanding the Word of God. Because when you do understand something in that manner, you have a foundation. Your understanding is founded in the Old Testament, founded on things that came before, so that it has a witness in the Old Testament is a witness to the New Testament. You have two witnesses, and that gives you strong foundation for your conclusions. They're not coming out of the logic of your own mind, which may have no Old Testament foundation whatsoever. And so you would have a house built on sand. So we built our house on the rock, and here, 27th day turns out, by looking in many other ways, when did Jesus die on the cross? Well, it's 27 AD. When will Jesus return? Well, it's 2,000 years later, 2027. When you look at Daniel 12's prophecy, blessed is he who comes to the year 1335, and it relates to the desolation that represents the Dome of the Rock sitting on the Temple Mount, which was completed in 692. And we add the 1335 years, we come to 2027. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1305 years. Daniel 9 is a famous chapter related to the year Jesus would die on the cross. It turns out, I'm sure quite to the chagrin of many, that the verse numbers in this case are actually here to confirm whether your understanding is correct. And therefore, Jesus turns 30 years old in 24 AD, verse 24. Jesus has a 2-year ministry in 25 AD, and the second year is 26 AD. And Jesus returns 27 AD. So the verse numbers are the answer to the question, in what year will Jesus return? And they're known to us in the Gregorian format. It actually specifies in verse 27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. This is not a 7-year week now. This is not it's one of the determined years and of the 70 weeks. So the 70th week is split into 7 years. It's one of those years, but this particular verse is not a week of years. This verse is a literal 7-day week that he confirms the covenant with many for 1 week, because it says, in the midst of the week, in the middle of that week, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. And the sacrifice and oblation, the offering, when the curtain is rent from top to bottom. So now the way into the Holy of Holies is exposed. And that has a dual meaning. One, we have open access to pray to Jesus, our high priest, who is seated at the right hand of our Father. But as far as the temple goes, exposing the Holy of Holies means that God cannot dwell there. So instead of looking to the temple as in our minds or in our worship as the focus, we can focus straight up to the heavenly throne where Jesus resides and pray directly into the Holy of Holies. We can bypass the physical temple where God no longer dwells, And so if God doesn't dwell there, then it's completely irrelevant to sacrifice there and make all your offerings there. The temple service as a focus, as an object of our spiritual mind, is just no longer functioning. If God doesn't dwell there, there's just no point to offer sacrifices there. And so this is the physical 7-day week, of which Jesus accomplishes this by dying on the cross Wednesday towards the sunset. And that's the middle of the week. And his week begins with him being extolled as the Messiah King in Jerusalem on Sunday, on what's called Palm Sunday. He doesn't do that on Saturday. He rests like a normal Sabbath rest on Saturday. That's the 10th, when the lamb is brought into the house and it's set up and it's cared for and treated nicely. On the Sunday, everyone will be back to work, a normal work day. The city will be filled with people, as opposed to on a Sabbath, everybody is just at home and staying at home. So he wouldn't come to the city on the Sabbath to ride in on a donkey, because there wouldn't be anyone there hardly to greet him, being a Sabbath day. So it's Sunday. So the week goes from Sunday to Saturday, where he comes out of the tomb on Saturday evening, which would be 3 full days of night and daylight. The sign of Jonah, 3 days and 3 nights. And when you specify days and nights, you're simply saying 3 24-hour periods. Just as Jesus said, are there not 12 hours in the day? Of course, the other 12 hours are the night hours. The numbers in Daniel 9, again, also tell you the year. Only 27 AD, all the elements that we see in scriptures coming to light at this particular time, which isn't just the year, but it's the actual sunset moment that his body is being placed in the tomb, of which we are magnificently blessed to set eyes on what is actually going on in the celestial heavens in the very moment that our Savior has been buried underneath the earth, where God has communicated, arranged for these planets to all be in precisely the correct positions to be a witness to the story and confirm when Jesus actually died. So people might ask, how do we know Jesus actually even existed as a person beyond just, blind faith and believing? And God provides this basis upon which to make it undeniable that Jesus lived and moved on this earth. The apostles handled him and touched him. He really existed, and he really performed everything that we are reading about him. God gave us the signs in the latter day, so our faith would be founded on a rock of evidence. And this picture right here, to those who truly understand what it is they're looking at, is a complete miracle. For these celestial objects to all be positioned in this manner at this moment is no coincidence. It would be a monumental coincidence with incalculable odds that these things are all showing up in this identical moment, this most pivotal prophetic moment. And here they are. And it just looks so easy. But if you think about it, this had a huge amount of work to develop the tools by which we can see this now, to develop the calculations, all the testing, all the technology, all the programming and development to get us to this point is monumental. And we, for almost nothing, can have access to see this. And of course, it takes many, many hundreds of hours of effort and pursuit to have discovered by painstakingly searching to actually find this inside the astronomy application. There's nothing except the pages of the Bible being peered into and looked at with a mind that 100% believes that God wrote those biblical words and He's designed them to be followed like a set of instructions and compared to the celestial heavens until one learns His system. It's not ad hoc. It's a system of being able to read the celestial clock. Just like any child would go through a process of learning how to read the time that a physical clock with hands are trying to tell that person what time it is. God bless the eyes that get to see this image. And we hope that it is beneficial to your faith to see once more the undeniable proof of the tangible existence of God, and that all things that He's ever said to us through the pages of His Word are true and reliable. God bless.
Lamps Full Understandings. Subscribe, then like. You can help another attain until salvation. Spread the good news. Subscribe and like now. Bless your family and friends. Share now.